Okay, so today we're watching Why Telltale Games Died. I don't know how it died though. I remember vaguely that they my theory is that they were stretching a little bit too thin and they went bankrupt. So yeah, let's get on to the video. Let's see why Telltale died.
In 2012, Telltale Games emerged as pioneers of interactive storytelling and gaming, reshaping the entire
Facts.
industry with their episodic, choice-driven titles. Their
Mm-hmm.
breakthrough adaptation of The Walking Dead not only received several Game of the Year nominations, but also established a new market for choice-driven games of this style.
Dude, who here remembers like the beginning when The Walking Dead first came out? Dude, it was such a magical experience, dude. It was like I think I think they were the first who made it, or like they were the first ones who popularized it. Yeah, it's strange how they were like the greatest pioneers to ever cultivate like this type of genre, and then they just went up in smoke. Like it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Telltale found a way to immerse players into worlds where their decisions shaped the unfolding story, and they
Man,
were untouchable.
that
But 6
moment,
years
dude.
later, the entire studio would unexpectedly close down, and over 250 people would lose their jobs in a matter of days.
Damn. Bro, when I heard the news when, that Telltale was like he's like going away, dude, my heart was completely broken, man.
So, how did a company that had such a meteoric rise to superstardom quickly
Hmm.
find themselves in one of the ugliest and most shocking studio closures in
Please,
the
please
history
tell
of the
us.
video game industry?
How did
Well,
they
to tell the
get
story,
all
we need
up?
to start with their quick rise to fame, because
Hmm.
ironically, this is what would lead to their downfall.
Really? Wait, is it The Walking Dead? I don't think it's The Walking Dead. I think it was doing pretty good, like for the long run. I think it was like their main bread and butter.
The three founders of Telltale, Kevin Bruner, Dan Connors, and Troy Molander, all saw some success with the adventure game genre prior to founding the studio. Each of
Hmm.
them had come from LucasArts, which during the 90s was basically the leading developer in the genre. But because
Oh.
of a round of unexpected mass layoffs, the trio decided to take a chance on themselves and start their own adventure game studio called Telltale Games in 2004. In the early years of Telltale, they had found a little bit of success in the genre with releases like Tales of Monkey Island and Back to the Future. However, these games never really reached
Mm.
critical acclaim because, well, they were nothing special. The gameplay was relatively stale,
Yeah,
the
I've never
writing
heard of
was
those games.
uninteresting, and the same tired tropes were overused to tell the same story in different ways. They really just had trouble sticking the landing with any of their releases, and some of their other early titles like Jurassic Park and
Honestly, they look
CSI
kind of
seemed to
great.
echo the same complaints. Mainly that these stories were too basic, too short, and not nearly innovative enough. Because of this,
Hmm.
Jurassic Park and many of Telltale's initial titles didn't perform well and would put quite a bit of financial strain on the company. They reached a point where they needed to get something out pretty quickly.
Yeah, I know they covered Jurassic Park earlier, but like I don't know a lot of people that were into that, and I think they were covering like brands or franchises that 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 not a lot of people care about. Yeah.
So they started scrambling. And ironically,
Hmm.
this scramble would lead to the development of the game that would put them on the map and later cause the downfall of the entire company.
No
2012 marked the release of the
way.
first season of Telltale's The Walking Dead, based on and actually made in collaboration with Robert Kirkman and his famous comic and TV show of the same name. This game wasn't just another
Ooh,
Telltale game, it
okay.
was absolutely groundbreaking for the studio and the gaming industry at large. They managed to strike gold with The Walking Dead's release and sold
Hmm.
millions of copies relatively quickly. A lot of the success stems from the fact that they created an emotionally gripping story that capitalized on the source material it was using. The Walking Dead didn't just tell a story, it created a world that seeped into your bones. The desperation of the survivors, the bleakness of the ravaged landscape, it all felt crushingly
Yes.
real. And the reason why this game did so well was because of the aspect of choice.
Yeah, dude, I think also I think it was like the most perfect time to even like to develop such a game around when the show The Walking Dead was at its peak. And I think it was like in the early 2010s, and everyone was like all over The Walking Dead. Everyone was talking about it, like the people and my friends at school was talking about the latest episode of The Walking Dead, and there was like a huge fan base for it. and they really struck like a gold mine with the game. And also like knowing The Walking Dead was their biggest uprising and their biggest downfall was quite shocking.
The way Telltale designed this game, players could truly choose everything along their journey to
You chose not to shoot Jolene. Dude, they also like I remember that like so many memes about the Telltale games like telling you like, oh, you chose not to, or that X character will remember that, and that was so funny. It was all over the place.
directly influence the story. The idea of interactive choices that have real consequences on the characters and the story wasn't new to Telltale, but the level at which this was pulled off was significantly higher in The Walking Dead. The ability to utilize the grim, depressing world from the comics and TV shows gave them the direction to make choices that actually matter. And well, this clearly seemed to resonate with the audience because the game received over 80 Game of the Year awards and sold over 28 million
Oh
copies.
my
12 years later,
God.
and The Walking Dead is still touted as one of the best adventure games ever made, and is
Facts.
often used as an example when discussing emotional depth and character writing in video game stories.
The writing, the storytelling, the atmosphere, the music, especially like it was top notch, perfect. They made it everything like so well crafted, and I think me personally, I think Lee's death was like a domino effect of how the company was going for. I don't know. The moment when Lee died and they started up with season 2 and 3 and so on and so forth, I think it just kind of went downhill, especially when they were branching out into newer titles. It wasn't great. Yeah, it wasn't great.
The Walking Dead was a huge risk for Telltale, but it paid off more than they could
Really?
have ever imagined. It had allowed the studio to rapidly expand, and it also provided them with a definitive
Oh, yeah, he said that to rapidly expand. And I think they rapidly expand a little too much, a little too thin out far. And yeah, that's no bueno for if you're starting up in anything, for something like this.
Telltale style that they knew could work. And they would successfully utilize this style a second time in 2013 with The Wolf Among Us, which was arguably even better than The Walking Dead. Building upon the brutal
Honestly.
choices and emotional depth of its predecessor, The Wolf Among Us constructed a beautiful mystery story, once again utilizing the emotion and depth found in The Walking Dead.
I would say that The Wolf Among Us is like maybe like I think it's like original. I think this is like an original thing where they weren't really using like a famous brand or franchise and made it into their own. And that really resonated with a lot of people and how well receptive this game had.
Choices were extremely impactful, the characters were well-rounded, and the plot was full of moments that genuinely made a lot of people cry. It was a masterpiece. Then, they
True.
repeated the formula again with The Walking Dead.
No. You see, this is where everything was kind of going downhill because of season 2. I mean, yes, the formula in The Wolf Among Us was a grade A masterpiece, but I just don't know how they fucked it up in season 2. I honestly don't. I think it was it was the characters that made it worse, and it didn't really. Without Lee, it was nothing. It was just a big old nothing burger.
Season 2, and it had kind of the same effect. Impactful choices, plot twists, shock, and emotions. Then, they made Tales from the
Yes and no. I think the part where like they were like in winter and the baby was involved, I think the winter arc in that season was the only memorable thing I could actually remember. And the other parts were just like so blurred and vague, and it was boring. I didn't like a lot of characters in that season. And Lee wasn't there too. It was like I think I was expecting like a flashback or memory of Lee. I think that would have made the game a little bit better, but they didn't. I don't think they really pull it off. If they did, then that kind of tells us that season 2 wasn't that memorable.
The Borderlands, Game of Thrones, Minecraft Story Mode, Batman, and 2 additional Walking Dead spin-offs, all within the span of 3 years.
Okay, yeah, they they were cooking a little bit too quickly. 6 games in under 3 years. That's crazy. I think it was the amount of stuff they were putting out. They were putting out they were dumping too much in a short amount of time that no one was able to like easily digest the game or just even review it, or even like I think it was just too many to keep up, to be honest. Especially with the spin-offs. It was quite an interesting path they took. But Borderlands though, Tales of the Borderlands, God, that was perfect.
The same formula, the same choices, the same shock value and plot twist, the same everything. Sure, sometimes it was.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. To me personally, it was so repetitive, and I thought they would do something like very innovative about it, but I think they were really sticking to their method of like pointing and clicking and just choosing one of the 4 options, and just it was getting a little bit. It was really, really getting stale.
It was executed well, and other times it fell short, but they basically repeated the same formula over and over again and hoped for something new. The shock and emotion started to feel like a tired trope, and the plots converged together into a predictable, repeatable, and scalable formula instead of something truly creative and unique. The studio that was once touted for its risk-taking and unique storytelling began to do the exact opposite. Characters started to feel either like carbon copies of characters from previous games, or just completely generic and uninspired. With the exception of a few minor plot changes, each story felt like a copy and paste from previous titles. Even the choices were affected by this formulaic approach, with each choice feeling less and less impactful to the story at large. The hype and positive sentiment of the fanbase began rapidly dropping with each release, as Telltale went from a studio that seemed to do nothing wrong to a studio that seemed to do nothing right.
I don't think they did nothing right. I think they were just too lazy to even like go beyond and just innovate. I think they were really, really stagnant for such a long time, and they were just putting out way too much stuff that people didn't really resonate, and it was not the move. It was not the greatest move at that time.
As the failed releases began to pile up, Telltale's financial problems returned. With these issues came pressure to release quicker and quicker. The need to speed up was a counterproductive one, and only led to a further drop in the quality of the games and a crunch culture problem that would cause a snowball effect and send Telltale.
Instead of letting them cook, they were just like, they were putting their stuff like McDonald's, right? They would just make something like within 30 seconds, just make it and just say like, here it is. Here's the game we made. And it was awful. It was really, really awful. And yeah, I didn't like what they were going, and it was just too much to bear. Like after failure after failure after failure, they just keep making more. Like, I think they were making a game within like every 3 to 4 months, and it was crazy. I thought they would like be the type of company to like, let them cook, let it simmer a little bit, but that no. The moment you play their new game, another one already came out a week later. It was that bad. It was really that bad.
Telltale Games into a downward spiral. They probably needed a nap after this because things were about to get even crazier. And for
they
their
were burnt
sake,
out.
I hope they use the sponsor of today's video.
Oh my god!
I know one thing. As I've gotten
Do
older,
sneaked in
I've
with the
learned to
freaking
appreciate my sleep,
sponsor.
and
Okay, hold on.
now let's return to the story about Telltale. I mentioned a
Finally.
downward spiral, and to understand how this happened in the first place, we need to look a bit deeper into what was actually going on internally at
What was
Telltale
the
during
root
this
issue,
time,
my
and
man?
specifically discuss one of the founders of the company, Kevin Bruner. Shortly after the release
Kevin,
of The
what'd you
Wolf
do?
Among Us, the studio lost 2 of their most talented developers and writers, Sean Vanaman
Really?
and Jake Rodkin. the
No
masterminds behind
way.
many early Telltale titles like Sam & Max and the Monkey Island series. They had also played a pivotal role in the success of Season 1 of The Walking Dead. They had decided to leave to open their own studio called Campo Santo, known for their story-based title called Firewatch. The loss of this duo was
Okay.
almost certainly a contributing factor in the decrease in innovation and uniqueness in the releases following their departure, which was seen as soon as the second season of The Walking Dead released. Despite a generally positive reception, most would say that this game certainly wasn't an improvement on the original season.
Yeah, it felt like it was the same, and they had done nothing to like improve the graphics or the mechanics really. Like, I don't know how you innovate like a game that would play as a Telltale game, you know? You know what I mean?
But this is beside the point. The real question is this: why would Vanaman and Rodkin leave the studio in the first place? Well, a
Why?
major contributing factor to why they left was their issues with co-founder Kevin Bruner.
What?
Bruner was in a management position, while the duo worked primarily on creative projects.
No way.
And allegedly, Bruner had been jealous of the praise that Vanaman and Rodkin had received for their writing and storytelling.
Are you kidding me? You're the reason the reason why it all fell apart because of envy and jealousy, and how they were like those two guys were getting so much praise and he wasn't. Oh my god. Yeah, you know what, I think the company got what it deserved because of him.
This jealousy became a problem, and it started to cause a massive bottleneck where Bruner was micromanaging every detail of the creative process, nitpicking everything to do with storylines, character
micromanaging.
development,
I
and
hate that.
overall game design. Despite having gotten their way with The Walking Dead Season 1, the pair couldn't be asked to continue fighting with Bruner over every single decision, and they decided to leave. These two wouldn't be the only ones that would leave either. Lead directors, animators, and writers also would head for the door to find
No
greener
way.
pastures.
Oh my gosh. So all okay. Dang, it was actually all falling apart after The Walking Dead Season 1. No way. I guess it was no wonder why everything was like stagnant all those years. And how they were reaching for everything they could and just make a game out of it.
Some joining Vanaman and Rodkin at Campo Santo, and some creating their own indie projects. And despite these losses, the studio did not slow down. Instead, they pushed it into another gear. At the time, over 300 employees worked on multiple titles simultaneously, including Game of Thrones, Tales from the Borderlands, and Minecraft Story Mode. Each of these games were all rushed out in a time frame that was simply not sustainable.
They were working on no. They were working on 3 games at once? Oh no. Imagine being like the new intern or like the new employee of the company, and you were told that you were getting you were told that you're gonna work on 3 different games at the same time. Dude, I would just quit on the spot, dude. Oh my god.
What this ended up doing was creating a crunch culture where many of the employees were working
Dude,
14 to 18-hour days.
How many hours? 8? No. Dude, I don't think any game came out like very good when a freaking company like this just like crunch like so many games at once, and you know, exhausting all those hours on those employees, dude. Like, I mean, yes, a few landed pretty good, but like from the results that we've been seeing later on, like it was already like a red flag to begin with.
Trying to stick to the insane schedule that was being forced on them. So the employees didn't perform very well, and the games themselves were not up to the quality of the early Telltale successes. And not to mention, making so many games based on purchased IPs made it to where Telltale had to report to other companies, and devs would often be asked to redo huge portions of the game at the last minute. Telltale began to prioritize output over employee well-being, and morale, as well as the games themselves, began to suffer because of it. Extreme growth was the goal, and this increase in output would lead to the biggest project Telltale had ever been involved in, Batman. This game was expensive, not only because of the development.
Okay, maybe, yeah. I thought Game of Thrones would be expensive because it was like a popular IP, but Batman? Okay, we're gonna see why it was so expensive.
Cost, but also because of how expensive it is to license legacy established IP like this. They hoped that a Batman game would
Oh.
once again provide the spark that the original Walking Dead Season 1 had found. That it would
No. Mm-mm. I remember when this game came out, and not a lot of people like. I think at that point it was already too late, especially with those 3 or 4 years that came along the way. I think people were like really tired of playing the same thing over and over through like multiple IPs and franchises. It was just like, oh wow, they made a Batman Telltale. Ooh wee, that's gonna be the same thing. People, I think people already knew that it's gonna be the same thing. Even if they did change the style dramatically, it was already too late.
reignite the passion that fans once had. But ironically, the first season of Batman would not only cause fans to lose interest in Telltale, but to turn against them entirely.
Oh,
when this
yeah.
game launched, everyone was underwhelmed.
Ooh,
People were tired of experiencing the
oh,
same
look at
thing
the
every
score.
single time. The games had just become predictable, boring, and pointless, and the Telltale tool engine that they'd been using for a decade was starting to show its age. The engine was clunky, restrictive, and just overall lacking in many aspects. It was good when it was first unveiled, but a decade later, its lack of a dedicated physics system and other drastic shortcomings would prevent Telltale games.
They were working on an engine that was a decade old. Yikes.
From innovating and doing new things. It was simplistic enough to allow for releasing a large quantity of games, but didn't allow much room for creative expression, if the devs had any time for that in the first place. It became obvious to fans, critics, and even employees of the studio that the engine needed an upgrade.
Like
well, except Kevin Bruner. Instead of accepting the limitations.
Kevin, man, stop. I think at that point, Kevin would have realized that the game that he was putting out in a short amount of time wasn't getting well received. Maybe someone in the team was like, hey, maybe we should take our time. Maybe, let it simmer, and just actually, cook. but no, that sadly didn't happen.
Of his creation and listening to the fan base, Bruner remained stubborn, claiming that the similarities between games were intentional and that they wanted the games to have a baseline feel that would be enhanced by the writing.
No. I think he ignored them because he didn't want, like, I guess the other writers or like the main writers of the other team to get like more praise again, like last time for The Walking Dead. And I think he wanted his name to be out there more than than anything. I think, and I don't think he wanted the same outcome again with those two writers who made The Walking Dead to get more praise. Bro, it was just pure jealousy, man. Pure jealousy and ego.
And the fan base did not accept this explanation. And after the less than exciting launches of Game of Thrones and Tales from the Borderlands, followed by the underwhelming release of the Batman game, the company began to face some financial troubles, and this would mark the beginning of the end for Telltale Games. Kevin Bruner stepped down as CEO in 2017, and Telltale hired former Zynga CEO Pete Hawley to attempt to fix the sinking ship. Pete's first order of business was simple: downsizing. He would let go of nearly 25% of the company in an attempt to return to its small-scale roots, stating that he wanted to produce fewer games with a smaller team, just like the good old days.
Just like the good old days, but somehow that backfired.
There were a few games in the pipeline, and inevitably, none of these would hit quite like the early Telltale successes. So, in an attempt to reacquire their old fanbase, the final season of The Walking Dead would be announced alongside a follow-up to the beloved Wolf Among Us game. From the outside, it seemed as though this new plan may turn things around.
Yeah, especially like they updated the graphics, they made some little innovations here and there, and the writing was good. And I think after all those years, ever since The Walking Dead, and the years of stagnation and getting ignored, and people were just fed up, and people just left, and just, I think it was already too late to save the ship, and it was sinking. It was already sinking too deeply, and there was just nothing to save, sadly. I think if it were to happen like maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, before, the fall, then maybe they would have lived a little bit longer till this day. Who knows?
All they needed to do was deliver a few high-quality continuations of their most beloved titles, and
Yeah.
they would be good to go without the massive burden of a bloated.
When I heard they were making like Wolf Among Us 2, I thought that it would like, rejuvenate the community or something, but I think everyone was really busy with Fortnite. Their biggest downfall was not only the CEO of, the ex CEO, but it was another game called Fortnite, and everyone and their mama was playing that godforsaken game, and no one was really, into Telltale Games anymore. It was all about Fortnite and battle royales and Warzone, yada yada yada, and yeah, everyone moved on, sadly. Yeah.
Studio. It was by all accounts sink or swim for Telltale. Everything was on the line, and if these games didn't succeed, they would be in a really rough spot. But unfortunately, the first episode of The Walking Dead's final season was also met with a lukewarm response. For the most part, those who played it enjoyed it, but for the studio, their main financial issue at hand was not being solved. The problem came with the sales numbers. Not enough people were buying the game to begin with. They swung for the fences, and unfortunately, they missed. And exactly 1 month later would mark the final nail in the coffin for Telltale, as on September 18th, 2018.
I don't think the game, the final season, was bad. Cause I remember playing it. It was pretty good. It was like a good callback. It brought me back to playing more Telltale games, and I was really excited to play The Wolf Among Us 2, and Telltale was falling behind, to be honest, and it was quite saddening to hear about the bankruptcy after like maybe the first couple episodes of the final season. It was awful.
They would let go of nearly 250 employees and cancel all of the previously
no.
announced projects. Episode 2 of The Walking Dead's final season would still be released the following week, but the status of the remaining 2 episodes was completely unknown. In a final shred of good news,
Dude, it was scary. It was really scary when they announced it. And I was like, dang, dude, we're not even gonna like, because I don't think, even if they, oh man, I think they would have been in more financial trouble if they didn't release the newer episodes, because that would have been like the biggest lawsuit they would have got if they just went up in smokes and not finished the other episodes. And I'm glad they finished the episodes the best they can, and I'm glad it took them like a pretty good gap to finish them.
they would eventually announce that they'd kept a skeleton crew of about 25 people who would finish up the projects
25?
that they currently had going. Shortly after
Oh
this, they
my
would release the
God.
second season of Minecraft Story Mode and the final edition of The Walking Dead. But this was the end, and the once beloved studio began its fade from the spotlight. The devastating mass layoffs on September 21st, 2018 had already shattered the studio. Legal
Okay, I'm wondering why they decided to make season 2 of Minecraft instead of season 2 of The Wolf Among Us. Maybe because of the demographic at the time, or I don't know, but it was a dumb decision. Whoever made that decision to make fucking season 2 of Minecraft, man, no wonder it fell apart.
battles followed, and on October 2018, Telltale filed for assignment. While a fragment of Telltale lives on under new ownership, the studio, as it was known, is forever gone, leaving a bittersweet legacy in the gaming world. The impact of their
Yeah.
model, particularly seen in the first
Man, look at him. Look at Kevin right there. Look at him, dude. Just, I hate him.
season of The Walking Dead and The Wolf Among Us, continues to influence game development
little
today.
rat.
Impactful choices and branching
You ruined
narratives
everything. You ruined everything I loved.
have now become a staple in modern gaming, showing the enduring legacy of their work. Even though the studio's closure was an unfortunate event, there may still be a glimmer of hope for longtime Telltale fans. In August of
Just a small
2019,
glimmer of
a
hope.
company called LCG Entertainment acquired many of their assets, including some beloved IP. They resurrected the Telltale Games name, though operating as a fundamentally different entity with new leadership and a focus on collaborative partnerships. They even once again announced a second season of The Wolf Among Us, and while it has been delayed several times throughout the process, it's expected to be released sometime in 2024.
Dude, Bro, we're already in December in 2024. I don't think, dude, hearing that when, nah, I mean, it's already December and we haven't gotten nothing, no new news about the new season. I'm just gonna be very hopeful that it comes out in, I guess, in mid 2025 or late 2025. I don't know like what's holding them back at this point.
Are you willing to give Telltale another chance? Do you think they'll learn from their mistakes and return to what made them successful in the first place?
I want to say, with the new leadership and, hopefully they, put some more innovation and thought into this, and letting them cook. Yes, I will say yes to everything because I have very big hopes for them.
Or do you think that their story is a tale of disappointment? Let me know your
Don't say it
thoughts
like
in the
that.
comments.
Don't
Thank you guys
say
for
it
watching.
like
I will
that.
see you next time, and peace.